Hello, everyone. Welcome once again to another episode of Lack of Focus, episode 99, Fangs Out. I am your host, Ed Horde, and alongside me tonight, my good friend, Mr. Sean Dorsey. Sean, how's it going, my friend?
Good, Ed. How you doing?
Good. Would be a little bit better if I can get the stupid microphone audio issues that we've been having. You guys have missed 2 takes. This is my third one doing the intro. Hopefully the last. And of course, we're joined by my dearest and good friend, our producer extraordinaire, Mr. Chris Sheriff. Chris, how's it going, my friend?
Good, thanks, Ed.
All right, so we now have official OP rules for competitive X-Wing events in our hands. We're reading the documents and have pored over them feverishly. It's 5 pages. For tonight's show, we are going to cover over the official rulings on how events are going to be run under Atomic Mass Games. The speculation is over. We actually will be able to discuss what the plans are for that. We also have some new models that were released, or at least are going to release. Sean did some snooping somewhere and found them posted in some Facebook group somewhere. So we are going to go and cover those as well. But as always, we're going to start off with what we have been doing lately in gaming, in the flight deck. And Sean, as usual, I will kick it over to you first. What have you been up to lately, my friend?
Mine will be very short. I haven't done any. It's been a really busy 2 weeks at work. Chris and I were going to try to get a game in Monday, but it's been one of those weeks for me. So other than assembling some models, I put together some aggressors for 40K. I put together, what did I put together? I put together Uriel Ventress Uriel Ventress 40K.
There you go.
My son and I have lists built for Saturday, so we're gonna put them on the tables, and then we're gonna walk the rules for 40K. We're not doing kill team this time; it's an actual 40K.
Ooh, how many points?
1,000.
There you go.
I'm at 980. I'm at 980. He's probably closer to 1,000. We'll fine tune stuff right before we start.
Oh, how are you going to deal with giving him a 20-point lead? Oh, man.
Yeah, no, I feel like it's another game. What the heck?
There are points and upgrades you can be found abound to be able to spend those 20 points in Space Marines. I can assure you. You can buy, I don't know, there are a ton of them in there.
Well, it's upgrading weapons. It's, I spent 40 on Uriel Ventress to get close to get to that 20 points. To give him just better stuff, and then we'll go from there. We're not worried about who wins, who loses. This is more.
No, not at all.
This is literally all about learning the game, and we've only played one 40K, we'll call it, game that I think we had like 3 units each and stuff, and we played like 1 or 2 rounds because it took us like 3 hours to get to that point, and we were like 8 inches apart, our armies were and stuff. And the goal here is to get to just to get the game down. So in a couple weeks, we can do a true 1,000 point with stuff on the field, objectives and things like that. So
yeah, so that was the recommendation I was going to make. So, I mean, at 1,000 points, what I would do is I would just put 3 objectives on the board, 1 in your deployment zone, 1 in your sun's, and 1's in the dead center. And just kind of play it that way. You score objectives each turn after the first for primary objectives. So at the very beginning of the game, if you're standing on 1 objective, that's worth 5 points. If you're standing on 2 objectives, that's worth 10 points. And if you're standing on more than your opponent, that's also worth another 5 points. So each of those is worth 5. I probably should have done that. It's 5 points for having 1 objective, 5 points for having 2 objectives, 5 points for having more objectives than your opponent. So if you just did something just like that, don't worry about secondary objectives or anything like. Just do just the primaries. That'll be fine.
Yeah, and that's where we'll start. For us, it's just going to be that it's literally the concept of moving. Yes, I get it. Tape measure it out 5 inches, move your crap, unit cohesion, all that stuff. I get all that, but it's being able to do it and keep everything in order. Because you have what your units do, and that's what I need to sit down and do. I'm actually building out unit cards on my
that's a good
tablet.
idea.
I'm actually building them out on my tablet. They'll look exactly the same in spreadsheets so that it's bigger than trying to get it out of the book or out of the little app and stuff.
Yep,
and
it's a really good idea. And then, like I said, it's a matter of like I can look at the card and go, oh, This is how many times this gun shoots. I have 5 of these guys. I pick up 5 of these dice or 10 of these dice. They
Yeah, and
do it at this strength, this toughness.
that's the notes that I'll put in it too, where this is how many dice I roll for the attack for this one. If there's a sergeant, you'll get extra attacks. If there's this or that, you get the extra attacks and all that. So
Yep.
that's the ultimate goal by building that stuff out. And then my ultimate goal is I'm learning Tableau. So I want to do it.
Ooh.
I want to do it in Tableau with all of the fancy graphics and everything else. So, but that'll be way down the line. For right now, I'm just figuring out Tab. We use it at work, but of course I can't get a desktop license at work, so I spent the money to get the desktop license at home so that I can be able to learn how to use it, build it, and stuff like that. So
I dipped my toe in the Tableau pools a few years back, and then we switched over to Power BI and have not looked back.
yeah. I mean, that's just what we use at work is Tableau. So
It's interesting with government contracts and all the stuff that Microsoft does with them. I'm surprised they wouldn't have deals for Power BI.
It all government's different, so
Yeah.
it's lowest bidder usually, and this is probably the lowest bidder. But anyway, I haven't done much.
It's still fantastic. I mean, I'm not trying to dog on it. I'm not. It's just that we're a Microsoft shop where we're at. So when Microsoft came up with the Power BI, we made the transition over, and I haven't looked back since. It's still fantastic software. It's powerful software. It genuinely is. It's just I moved away onto a different direction in my career.
Yep. Yeah, but as far as gaming goes, nothing else really. I need to paint 4 models before Saturday. Not paint, sorry, prime 4 models before Saturday, so that they're blue like the rest of their brethren. And then, but it's been raining here, so I can't do it right now because it's too humid out. And
yeah, you got to be careful with that.
Too cold and too humid. So, but my goal is to finish building out my second box, the Combat Patrol box for Blood Angels, so I have those done. I did the aggressors out of that, and then I'm getting more aggressors.
Yeah.
I'm getting 3 more aggressors in the Imperium for this month, so I'll have 6 aggressors available.
You're gonna love those. Those are beautiful models, and they just do so much shooty in a game. It's so great.
Yeah. So nothing X-Wing related, nothing really gaming. I haven't even gotten into Project Zomboid in the last 2 weeks, so it's just been real busy trying to get through work the last 2 weeks. And like I said, Chris and I were going to try to play Monday because we didn't do D&D this week. We did D&D. We didn't do D&D 2 weeks ago either, so we haven't done it
we haven't done it
the last show. So
this week I will own. Salt is kind of a little different.
I guarantee you this: if you didn't back out, I would have been out. So there would have been no way I could have played for how tired I was afterward. So
well, then I'll take. I'll own that one because I was the first one to throw up the red flag and be like, got some funeral services we're driving home for 4.5-hour drive back. Not sure.
You gotta do the family thing first. So
yeah.
So, but anyway, that's all I have for this week, and we'll. I'm looking forward to talking main topic stuff here. So.
Same here. So I'll go and do mine real quick since Chris tends to carry this particular section of the game. I did get some gaming in this past week. I was able to make it up to the game store and get some 40K in. I took my neck runs out at 1,500 points for the league, which is going to be buttoning up next week. Next week's the finals, quote unquote. Everyone's last chance to get their 6 games in. That was the only requirement for the games, was to be able to get 6 games in. I got curb stomped by Eldar. They have this unbelievable sniper character that can just sit down on a Venom and just sit there and fly around the board and go, your character's dead, now your character's dead, now your character's dead, now your character. It's awful. It's just awful. Legitimately, my opponent had turn 1. He moves forward. I move forward. I'm going out and trying to grab all these objectives in the center because that's what my army's kind of designed to do. These strong, tough, almost immovable objects sitting on the center objective, daring you to come out to them. And then all of his Die Avengers get out and evaporate 75% of my army. Like, legitimately, I had 5 models on the board at the end of the second turn. I haven't even gone yet on the second turn. So my entire game consisted of moving models forward, rolling some dice to shoot some stuff, and then just picking stuff up off the board. Because everything is...
Just remind me, what was the last book that they released?
Oh, that would have been the Eldari, yeah.
Oh, weird. Cool. Sorry,
Yeah, weird.
Continue with your story about how you played against the newest army and lost, sorry.
It's stupid. Like, the sniper alone was annoying, but I don't think that he would have won the game individually by himself. I don't think that he could have. It was the simple fact of Dire Avengers being able to come out with AP4 weapons, and everything I have in my army is a 3+ save. So when they're blowing off spells to blow off cover saves, and you're like, oh, neat, have 85 wounds that are all AP4, and you're like, I have no cover save, I have no dice rolls, I'm just picking models up. There was zero fun had in that game. Zero.
Have you considered buying the Eldari Codex? I mean, there'll be a new one out next month, so you could just wait for that one if you want.
No. I'm the other army that I'm even remotely interested in is Sisters, but because of the fluff. I've been reading some of the books.
Tell me again how awesome new 40k is. Definitely
So
not just flavor of the month. For new books, a good one.
Right, but here's what happens, and this is the one step in 40k that I wish we could just skip past. Every book that comes out has come out with some levels of power creep. Whenever the AdMech book came out, it was the new hotness, and then Games Workshop went, whoa, and they adjusted points, and then all of a sudden they came down to more of a reasonable level. And then you had the next army, which is Tau, and Tau are now starting to come down to reasonable levels.
But someone in this conversation refuses to play 40k for fun and do like Crusade rules, which would like self-balance because people are playing for fun. And like just plays competitively and then goes, oh man, I got trounced by our newest book. Weird.
First of all, I don't think I ever said that I only ever play competitively. I'm playing any casual
no,
league.
You refute. No, on the last show you said I mentioned that Crusade is apparently the way to play 40k, and you pulled a face.
Okay, and you're right. Now, so funny that you should mention that, because as I got to this, remember how I told you that Brett was the guy that I wanted to bring into the league? He was the type of player that I was trying to attract. Because he doesn't play competitive play. He only ever plays Crusade in narrative play. So I wanted to set up a league in which would bring in players like him that didn't reward wins. It's just, as long as you're playing games, wins and losses don't matter, points don't matter, as long as you're having fun. That's the only point. He reminded me that if I pulled him into this league and he agreed, that when the league ended, Gabriel and I would be joining him for Crusade. So guess what my homework assignment is for this weekend? It's to read the Crusade rules, because I have literally blown past them every single time I've ever looked at the rule book or any codex.
But my only advice to you would be, just don't try to break them.
I'm not. No. I totally want to do it just completely for fun.
Just when you read them, you'll be like, this seems really easy to break. Yeah, but just don't try.
I will not try.
Just enjoy it.
Because I almost asked Brett what army of the 5 armies that we currently have in the house, because Gabe's going to play Death Guard, of course, are the weakest, so that I can intentionally go in with an army that isn't strong enough. Because apparently, and it may be right, may be wrong, Necrons are really, really strong in Crusade, which to me says I shouldn't take Necrons. I should take something else. I might take my Nids. Well, they have a new book coming out. So I'm kind of like, new book, new rules, obviously the strong one. So we'll see where it goes. But yeah, so I've got, so League closes out next week, and then I'll be starting Crusade play for the first time. Like, I've never really done 40k narrative play. I think we played one narrative event where it wasn't really narrative. It was basically Risk with 40k, where you do the whole thing where you have a map and you're like, oh, this person tries to attack that place, and you try to make rules to make it balanced, but ultimately once someone gains an upper hand, they just steamroll everyone. We've tried that one time. So this is going to be my actual first delving into narrative play in 40k. So that'll be interesting. That's it. That's all I've got, really. Oh, wait, no, I forgot. I did not commit fraud. Legitimately, right after we recorded the show, the very next morning, that person sent the PlayStation back, and I now have it in hand. So I did not commit fraud. They
Important to
sent
get
it
on the
back.
record, you know.
Important to get on the record. So now I have to fight with UPS because UPS, I literally took the box over to them and said, "Here, look, here's the damage and here's the box." And they're like, "Oh, well, that's neat. We need a phone number for the person that bought this from you." And I'm like, "That's against eBay's terms of service. I can't ask the person who bought it for their phone number." And they're like, "Well, then we just can't file a claim then, can we?" Excuse me?
Seems like we've got you there.
Like,
should have just committed fraud, Ed.
I can't have been the first person to have ever shipped anything from eBay through UPS.
I imagine you're not. You're just the newest person to get in on the scam.
So yeah. So luckily, the manager of this my local UPS store is a sane and decent human being, and she's like, "Look, I've got what they're really going to do is they're going to ask for a phone number. Someone's going to try to make a phone call. They're not going to get a phone call, so then they're going to ask for someone to send photos." She's like, You gave me the box. I gave them everything that they shipped in because that's all the person did was put it back in the box and mail it to me. She's going to snap photos of it and she's going to push it through that way. So we'll see how it goes. So I wanted to get that on the record. Ed did not commit accidentally fraud. Didn't happen. The end. All right, Chris, what have you been up to?
So I was at the Gamma Trade Show all last week in Reno, Nevada.
Yeah, that little thing.
Yeah, I made a decision going down there that I wasn't going to try and focus on making content at the show. So I was treating it as like a networking opportunity and trying to explore what was down there, what was on offer. And I saw a bunch of cool games. I hung out with the guys from Cubicle 7 who do the 40k and fantasy role-playing games. I played the new card game Elector Counts, which I already owned anyway. It was an ironic amount of, you don't have to sell me your stuff because I already own it all. I was chatting with these folks from Steamforge Games. I have a couple of Epic Encounters boxes in a pile over just like this pile of garbage that needs sorting through is just huge. But yeah, they've got a couple of Epic Encounters boxes to work through. They're working on a Dark Souls 5e compatible role-playing game. That comes out soon. Now, that's
interesting. They're hitting while the iron is hot then in that case, because Elden Ring has kind of like blown up the next entry in the Souls series. Yeah. So everyone's going back to the Souls series all of a sudden.
Yeah, I think that's out in maybe July, I want to say. I know it's I held the physical copy of a book in my hand. It's printed and ready to ship. That looked pretty cool. There's some interesting elements from that. The Dungeons and Dragons Onslaught, Alex Davies' new project that he's heading up over at WizKids. That looks really cool. I played a game of that.
Was Alex there?
No, Alex wasn't there. I shot him a Facebook message straight after my demo. I was like, "Oh, good job, man! It's really cool." But I wanted to get some content out for that already, but I got conquered on my way back. I don't know. I landed, I ran an X-Wing event on Saturday, and then Sunday I was like, oh, this is not really just like a sore throat. Obviously, I'd had all my COVID testing to get back into Canada, and it was obviously like negative for COVID. But then, yeah, I'm still a little bit congested. But yesterday, Jill got home like an hour or so early from work, and I just went straight to bed. Slept from like 4 p.m. until like 9 o'clock at night. Got up for an hour, went back to bed.
Jeez.
So yeah, I've
read in the annals of history in the before times that there used to be things that people used to get sick of that weren't COVID, and they did things like have colds and have flu. Like that was a real thing before in the past.
It's really annoying because I needed to get my the GST return done for Dice 8. I was like, well, I'm going to land. I'll get that done on Sunday or a Monday when Evie's in daycare. Sunday we ended up having just a nice family day together. Didn't really do a lot, but I'd not seen them for like a week, and it was just nice to hang out. Then Monday, daycare was closed because her daughter was ill, so I had Evie at home. Sorry, and I started to feel not great, so I didn't get anything done on Monday. And I was like, oh, it's okay. I'll do the tax return when we're not playing D&D if we can't play or if I can't play X-Wing with Sean. And then I was just like dead to the world, so I went to bed early. Then Tuesday was like a write-off, so I got a return done yesterday, and so that's done. But I'm like so far behind because like all of this stuff behind me was supposed to be tidied yesterday, so that I could start doing content. And I wanted some little snippet videos done and everything. So yeah, it's been interesting trying to get caught up. I've got a bunch of photos to go through, a bunch of ideas for written articles. I've got some contacts who followed up with me already. I was actually on a Zoom call before we recorded with a person.
Before tonight, yeah.
So yeah, it's been really, really interesting networking. So it was really good actually. Not just like trying to sell Dice 8 to people, because I was unpitching myself as like Dice 8. It's like, oh man, probably not the content creator you want to work with here, because like
you're doing the exact opposite of what you're supposed to be doing.
Oh no, but I was one of the stores. I don't want to name stores or anything like that, but like they were talking to me about how much they were like. Basically, I was talking to someone from Asmodee and we were just chatting, and then later on he'd spoken to somebody else and said, "Oh, you want to talk to Chris? He's your guy." And then I was talking to. I had a meeting at 1:30 in the morning in the bar in Reno with the owner of this store.
That's how you do it right there.
And he was telling me about how much he's been spending on like his advertising and social media outreach and all of that. And I was like, this just sounds like bad play. And I felt like he was angling for me to come on board and help. And I'm like, I mean, I could probably take some of this guy's money and do a better job than has been happening, but I could also just save him $16,000 a month and teach him how to do it properly in like an hour. So I did that instead.
So you did that instead.
I scheduled a meeting with him and his management team for the next day. So they were going to take me out to dinner. So I ate beforehand. So he paid for me to have an apple juice and a side order of fries. That was my takeaway from. That's how bad I am at doing this. I ate beforehand.
You'd be a much better businessman if you weren't a much better person.
But yeah, it was really rewarding actually, because I was like, fucking hell. On my business cards, it's as part of a Dice It thing. I'm sure it says some like consulting for a gaming industry kind of thing. And I was like, I'm really good at this. Yeah, I mean, I should take it more seriously. But
maybe.
I was laying the breadcrumbs for them to get to where they needed to themselves, and like just sitting and watching the conversation evolve and develop, and I just add in a point here and there, and they got to what I thought was the correct answer for them on their own. And I was like, and then I came back into a conversation. It was like, and this is how I'd shift the focus in that way, and these are the ideas you could use, and it was really rewarding and nice. So, and I'll try and check up on them in 6 months and see if they did any of it, and I can have a nice warm feeling inside and no actual money, and go from there, you know. But yeah,
maybe they'll reward you someday. Like, we should have cut him a check for that.
So, one of her management team did sign up for Patreon, so thank you, in the Discord now. So I felt like a winner. But no, it was really cool. I really enjoyed actually going through and having that conversation. It was really rewarding, and I feel like obviously a game store is always a gamble, but I feel like they're in a good position to do what they need to do and set themselves apart. But yeah, all right. Being an 8 month old store and telling me you're spending $16,000 a month on your Google ad spend. Oof.
Oof.
I mean, I don't feel like that's going to increase sales by that much.
No, not in the early days like that. Did they have any? We had talked before you were going out there. Like they sometimes places like they throw like toss together like a little event or tournament of like, here, come play our game and win some free stuff kind of stuff. Did you get a chance to participate in any of that, or were you networking most of the time? Did they have it? And B, did you do it?
So there were different events. Like Games Workshop ran a Underworlds event again. Asmodee ran Song of Ice and Fire and Legion, and there was something else as well. The new My Hero Academia card game, I think.
I'll have to mention that to my daughter.
Yeah, I have no idea what it is. I feel like a very old boomer person, but yeah, apparently My Hero Academia is a big thing, and there's a card game coming out soon. Check it out. I actually, I was wandering around just to chat to the Asmodee folks again, because I wanted to get to know their new team. All really nice people, FYI. Good bunch of folks over at Asmodee OP, and we had some good talks about obviously the challenges of moving on from a previous team who a lot of the people in our community knew and got along with, and the challenges they'd face coming into it, and pretty frank conversations that they took extremely well from an alcohol-fueled British person who's, gonna me being me, making friends and influencing people.
Yeah, I can't. They're not in a great like. There's nothing they could have done. It's not their fault.
Well, these people were hired on the start of 2020, just before COVID.
Oh God.
Yeah, they've got nothing to do with anything that happened. They just got offered jobs and took them. And then,
oh, by the way, here, we're going to drop this in your lap, and it's COVID. Have fun.
Well, it's like, oh yeah, so this community probably just hates you now. Have fun, run events for them.
Good luck, and then they leave.
You know what I mean? But that kind of thing. So yeah, so anyone who does get to interact with the new people at Asmodee and the OP team, they seem like really genuine good people with a passion for the hobby. So cut them a break. But yeah, they didn't have. I went to just chat, and they were waiting for one person to play a Legion. I was like, fine, I've played before. I can sit and do Legion for you. And then I ended up just running that pod of 3 players plus me, as teaching this. It's all store owners or store employees. And you're just teaching them to play the game so they can talk about it knowledgeably. And then if you played, you got to keep your army and put your name in a raffle for, I think it was $5,000 worth of product.
Oh, cool!
That's pretty cool.
But yeah, so I ran a Legion demo for a few retailers for Asmodee, and that was really good fun. I think they let me have the new starter set for A Song of Ice and Fire. Yeah, A Song of Ice and Fire. So, which was the first fix. So I'd gone with the intent of not getting free stuff because I wanted. I didn't, as part of networking, I didn't want it to be I'm a content creator, influencer person. Give me free stuff.
Right.
My pitch revolved around I do not want free stuff. I want to build a relationship with you.
Yeah, but you can always get free stuff out of that too.
Yeah, but
that can be a secondary or tertiary thing.
Yeah, but that wasn't the goal of the. You know what I mean? And that it was all part of it, but that was my focus wasn't getting the free stuff. But then I had something, and I flew with hand luggage only, so that meant I needed to get a box. And I was like, well, I have a box now. I don't want a box to be half empty. So I ended up getting a bit of free stuff. So I've got some reviews I'm going to do. Some board game stuff as well, which I tried to talk to like the smaller people and like again more like trying to build relationships where I can actually do like a review of a game, but like a long term. Like we've played a few times now. This was Jill's thoughts. This is my thoughts, and like do it with the people who made it as well. So like ask questions like what inspired you to go in this route. So it's a bit of a different, not a flash in the pan review kind of thing. So that'll be interesting. I've got no idea if it'll work on how the tone of it and how it'll all be. But yeah, it'll be really interesting. I'm excited to give some of them a try. So that was the Lost Ones, which I think launches next week. But I got the demo copy she brought to the show. She let me bring back with me, and there's some miniatures from that, which I'm going to do on one of the painting streams as well. Because it's like an expansion pack from a Kickstarter, I think, where you could upgrade from card standees to miniatures. But there were some nice sculpts. So, but yeah, that was a really interesting game. It looks like a narrative, like storytelling, like tell your own adventure kind of exploration game. Reminded me aesthetically of like when you play in Legend of Zelda Link to a Past or Secret of Mana and you go in the woods and you go in, it's kind of the pattern around the maze you've got to take, but it's obviously because it's a card with different exits, and then you move from one block to a different block, and then stuff will happen. And yeah, that was what it brought to my mind. But
did you ever play Zombies?
No.
So Zombies is a very similar mechanic where basically it's a deck of cards that has all these different exits for streets, and you can basically just put them up wherever they kind of match up. So like every single time you play the game, the board's very different. It can go down in different streets. It depends on how the player paces it. That's what it sounds like to me. More expanded, of course, because the only mechanics are how many zombies are on the board when you get there. That's the only mechanics, but that still sounds really interesting.
Yeah. And then obviously all of the bigger companies, I sat down and had very frank conversations with Asmodee's head of North America, and all the head of the sales department, and I'd have to find his card to give his full title. I'm not going to name drop people anyway. The North American and the international sales rep at Asmodee, and Lion Rampant, who do roughly half of Asmodee's stuff, because obviously there's Asmodee Canada as well, about not just from a retailer side, but from a community side, how frustrating it is being in like Canada or some of different countries for like the organised play and the announcements and trying to streamline that process. So I volunteered time and energy, but obviously we'll see how that goes. I don't expect to be... I told him, so I don't expect you to take me up on this, but it was a very frank conversation of like, I'm more than willing to put work in from letting you know what the issues are. From I can do the retailer side, I can do the community side, I can do the general public side, I can get you a feedback of where these issues lie and try and identify weaknesses that need to improve. But they were keen and receptive, because it wasn't necessarily drunk Chris talking at that point. I was very professional. I was very professional, and it wasn't a "you guys are shit." It was we all understand that there's been weaknesses and things that have happened in the past, we keep making these same mistakes. So how can we improve them? But yeah, I did lots of chatting and re-establish some older relationships and stuff with folks from Warlord Games North America. Good guys. I would drink with them again, and did.
Good.
Yeah. But no, it was good. Very, very entertaining. Lots of other community content creators as well who I didn't know because I'm terrible at my job.
Well, you're terrible at your job. You're just terrible at keeping an eye on your competition.
I just don't care, Ed. I just don't care.
Yeah.
I'll make my own content, and like I don't care what other people are doing. So it makes me not the best at the influencer culture party got invited to. It's like, yeah, this isn't. These aren't my people. I'll go back downstairs. It's fine.
Yeah.
But no, it was good. Some really nice people, actually. Lots of good relationships built, hopefully. Touch wood. See how that goes. But that's been my week. No real time for gaming. I did run an event which I'd planned to talk about as part of a main topic. So it'll be more of a compare and contrast. I don't know if people are in the Discord. Obviously, one of the conversations we'd had was about the lack of official OP documentation, and I'd spoken about how I planned to run the first event that I ran, and how I wanted to just do it blind, so I didn't do any research into what other people were doing. And then I was going to look at what Gold Squadron were doing for Adepticon, but then the official rules came out anyway, so I can talk about how close my stuff was to what they did and where it differs and what I think the pros and cons of it were. But yeah, that's all for the main topic.
Which I think perfectly segues into the main topic.
Well, news first, Ed. Come on, let Sean have his news.
All right, fair point. Let's do that one first. You're all right. Sean, it's your story. I think you should run this one.
Are we talking about the ships?
Yeah.
We are.
Give me 1 second. Let me get into podcast. Let's see, where do we put it? X-Wing?
Yeah.
X-Wing talk. All right. Well, it looks like Asmodee put out or the pre-release for 2 new ships. One is that Republic there, Chris?
Yeah, that is the Republic Z95 Headhunter, or
Headhunter.
Z95.
Z95.
For those of us who speak American English, Z95.
Z95 Headhunter. Yeah, I agree.
Yep. Basically, they are a new sculpt, and they're following that Clone Wars sculpt of the Z95, which I actually like. I know others on here have expressed differences to it, but I really like this sculpt of it. Now, we don't have any cards or any release information on them yet.
Nothing like that. Did it look like there were 2 packs for those?
They are both.
They are 2
packs.
Right. Yeah. So you're getting 2, which is pretty cool. And price point in the U.S. looks like $44.99, which is
pretty standard.
Yeah,
I'd like to defend myself on that one, Sean, real quick. It's not that I don't care for the Clone Wars version of the Z95. I do. I like it because it reminds me an awful lot of how the ARC cockpit is. For me, it's a lore perspective, in that the Z95 for me has always been the precursor to the X-Wing. So it had the same cockpit style and the same fuselage design as an X-Wing. It just had 1 set of wings, not 2. So when I look at that one, it doesn't feel right to me. That's all. That's the only piece to it.
The other thing I would look at it is this is the precursor to the one you're talking about, which is the precursor to the X-Wing.
Right, and I get that. I do.
The Clone Wars stuff seems to be a little chunkier when it comes to how they built their ships out, things like that. So they probably had, more material at the time than when you're getting into that, later time frame, the pre-Galactic Republic, pre-stuff like that. And,
right.
And, I'm not a huge fan of the Clone Wars cartoon or the prequels. The prequels are good. But I like the style of the prequel ship. Now, I do love the X-Wing. The X-Wing is...
because it's iconic.
Yes, it's the be all end all, and when you're 7 years old in 1977, it has a giant impact on your brain. So the X-wing, B-wing will always be my two big iconic ships in the
I
Star
love the
Wars
B-wing.
universe.
I've always loved the fact that the whole it's the center of gravity is on the cockpit and the ship spins around it. That always seems so backwards to me. It's so fun.
Yeah, yep. Okay, the second ship on this one
So
is.
before you move on, Sean, I did
Sorry.
have a couple of right. So my only worry for this ship is if it's a Z-95, is that it's another 2 dice attack ship for Republic. So obviously they've got the V-19s, they've got the V-wing, they get this as well now. I feel like the clones are just being done dirty, man. The N1 is a the N1's a 2 dicer as well, I think.
I think you might be right.
Yeah. I think you're right.
So how many 2 attack dice low hull ships can you put into an army before they just don't have a role to fill?
Yeah. So
ultimately, though, didn't we learn at the beginning of X-wing that you could put a bunch of 2 dice ships, create a swarm, and basically shoot ships down because you're killing them by stealing tokens and making them, de-streamlining them basically, and then killing them because, well, you're rolling as many, attack dice as they have defense dice type thing. Now these are difficult. These get more difficult when you're going up against 3 defense dice ships or more, But
I just hope there's something to set them apart. Is what I'm getting at. It's like the V-wings are the 3 agility, the V-19s are the 2 agility but a bit chunkier with a terrible dial. The N1s have got the shields and the full throttle, so they're on the upper end of the points bracket because they're not really your cheap filler ship. But so I worry that these will just null and void the V-19. That said, the fact that they added the second missile slot to the V-19 and you can take barrage on it now, I mean, maybe that just null and voids my entire argument, and you can't really consider the V-19 a 2 dice ship anymore.
Well,
and my wife just bought me a cup of tea because she loves me.
Yay! I mean, so you are making the assumption, of course, that it is a 2 attack dice ship. It's a Z-95. It's most likely going to be a 2 attack dice ship. I would not see how it wouldn't be. My inner Bob is screaming, going, but it all depends on points and the dial. And
well, I think if we look at this realistically to lore, so let's go back to lore. Weren't clones and clone ships basically just disposable entries, in their army?
Look, I'm a fan of Plo Koon, so clones are people too. It's okay.
But you get my point here. I mean, you throw more. So I'm guessing these you're probably going to be able to put 4 or 5, 6 on the board, hopefully.
Do a little mini swarm.
To do a, kind of give them a swarm ability, and and hopefully they'll have some nifty things, but who knows?
I hope so. I'm excited because I like the sculpt, and I think if I was getting into X-wing now and didn't have this, where it means I have to keep all of the factions, I think I'd be a Republic player. Because Sean, just get fucked. I've got the Force. Just get fucking wrecked. I don't want to be good at the game. I just always want to have that calculate token on hand when I need it.
You just want to win. That's all you want to do.
Just trying to outfly you seems difficult. I'll just have a purple token that just says "get wrecked." It's fine.
Yeah.
So. Anyway, on to the second one.
Well, first I just want to say that is SWZ 89 in the catalog.
Yeah.
And we're moving on to SWZ 92.
Yeah.
So by my math, there might be a couple numbers missing in there.
So the other ones were what were already announced. I think 89 was the missing SKU.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
And I believe we've got, obviously, we know about the Razor Crest and Gauntlet, which I believe are ones that fill that hole, and Pride of Mandalore.
Gotcha. I
I
gotta
mean,
get back to X-Wing talk. Okay.
yeah.
So moving on, because Chris prompted me to move on. So SWZ 92 is and bear with me, it's a Scum and what's the other one again?
Separatist.
Is that Separatist? Thank you. It's a Separatist build with Scum. So this is a dual use box. It is called the Rogue Class Starfighter. And
basic ship.
Yes, Cad Bane, and these are more droid ships too, right?
I think so. I don't. All I know is that it was. Well, it's a Separatist faction ship, so I would be awfully surprised if there wasn't a calculate token toting pilot.
Right. The price point on these are $47.99, so a little bit more than the others, but
a little bit chunkier.
Yeah, they have a little more girth to them, and they just, to me, they look like droid ships.
Fucking wrecked. I mean, I'd pay extra for an extra girth, Sean, so it's okay, you know. It's got it where it counts.
That's right. It's got it in the nacelles in the cockpit, you know, where it counts.
All the puns. Here we go.
Oh dear.
But I don't have much more to say. I found this on a site on Facebook today and thought it was pretty interesting that we're seeing, you know, more ships. And my guess, and I have to guess on this one because I don't know. I don't have the ins to this, but my guess is these are FFG created ships.
I would think they come in the same vein as the previous ones with the Mandalorian.
I'm fairly certain that on one of the Twitch streams they said that they don't have any physical product
in the pipeline.
Yeah. They're still working through a backlog of FFG stuff, so it wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah. And the one good thing is I'm actually interested to see, now that we're probably as close to through the catalog, you know, from FFG, we have to be close to the end of that line.
We have to be, I would think.
So the tongue-in-cheek response is once we stop getting a bunch of fucking words on the cards, that's when we'll know.
Right.
Just let me read all the words on this Clan Ren volunteer. While you perform an attack at range 1, if the speed of your revealed maneuver matches that of a friendly ship at range 1, you may... I don't know. I just want to roll dice at people. Too many words.
Yeah.
How do landing struts work again? All of the words. Oh, man. But
yes.
No, yes. But truthfully, so deadpan serious now, just to change the tone, I'm massively excited to see what AMG do. And there's a chance because we've definitely had the discussion off her. I don't know if we've had it on her about the licensing and like how much work they're gonna put in until they know if the license is renewed or if they're even gonna try and renew it. Who knows? Generally, like they could just be done. There's no guarantees, and it would be sad. But what are you gonna do?
Right.
But I hate bringing that point. I hate bringing that point up, but that is sort of like in a roundabout way. That is kind of the genius of where Nova Squadron and Nova Squadron Radio came from. Nova Squadron came from folks that were playing the original Star Wars miniatures game that Wizards of the Coast had. And when that game ended and the license moved over to Fantasy Flight Games, they followed the license.
Yeah.
And the rest is obviously history. They continued. The game did exceptionally much better than the Wizards of the Coast game did. But you are correct. There is no guarantee that AMG is even going to pursue it. I would hope that they would, but there's a lot of business decisions on the back end of that we're not privy to that might not make it viable for them. I don't know.
Well,
my hope obviously is that they do, because I'd hate to see another reset of a miniatures game, but it also means an end of a game that I have a lot of history in that I'd really like to not. Even though I'm not actively playing a ton of it, I don't want to see it go away either.
Well, not only that though, but you had Asmodee sell, so they have new ownership, so it depends if
there is
the return on investment, what becomes to the return on investment with the new investors, and so there's a lot of things that will go into that. If this is the end of life for a game, it is. But one thing I will say to that is that I'm not sure we would have seen competitive play continue.
No, and I think that
I agree.
I don't think that anyone at AMG is working under the impression that the game's just done and that we're treading water. Because why would you open yourself up for all of this abuse? And
right,
you would just tread water. You do, like, everyone across the board, as far as I'm aware, was extremely happy with the last points change before 2.5. Like, all of the detractors from 2.5 said that X-Wing was in the best place it's ever been, which was what AMG did.
right,
Correct.
Like, they had a points change before they did 2.5.
right.
Credit where credit's due.
So, like, they could have just sat on that and just kept treading water, pump these ships out, and just, you know what I mean? So I don't think anyone's working under that. So and that's why I'm always hesitant to focus on it too much, because it's a massive negative. And like, I've said this a lot recently over the last few months, and not just about X-Wing, but just like my life view in general at the minute. It's like, I would rather be wrong working on the assumption that X-Wing is going to go from strength to strength and continue forever than right about saying that X-Wing is going to be shit and be dead in a year.
Right.
It's like, yay, I won. That thing I love's gone forever. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I will say,
and everyone always makes those assumptions, like, oh, well, the community will keep the game going. And there are some examples of games out there in the community have kept a game going through, writing their own rules, writing their own cards, like the Star Wars CCG, for example, that the Cyphers have is a really good example of one of those. But for every one of those, there are thousands of dead games out there that are no longer published and no longer supported, and nobody plays anymore in any significant number.
Yeah. And, you got to look at this too. This is a 10-year-old game now. This isn't, a new...
That is so freaking crazy to hear.
It is, yeah. I mean, when you look at it, you're getting into the time when it was released, at that Gen Con time frame in August of 12.
Yep.
I mean, by the time... Sorry, Sean, by the time this comes out, we'll have had Adepticon, because that's being played this weekend. And yes. I have no ideas what the numbers are from Adepticon, but hopefully that blows it out the water. It's a massive event, and like, I don't even care about winners, losers, that kind of thing. I just want good vibes from the community.
In participation.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, it's still a game of setting dials, moving ships, and rolling dice. The difference between the game is that they've just changed up the way that the game comes to a conclusion, basically. Before it was a 75-minute game that had you flying around and blowing ships up. Now it's a relatively 75-minute game.
There is an asterisk to that, yes.
We're getting there.
Which you can still fly around and blow up ships, but it adds another element into it where it's you really should, and I'm not saying you have to, but you really should capture objectives and things like that, depending upon which scenario you're running. It's that type of thing that, your list building isn't just me versus the world now. It's me versus scenario versus the world.
Yeah.
And I think that's more fun. That's more exciting to me. But we'll get into that, at another time. But
I think we can go on to it. Well, so I did have one last thing, and I wanted to touch on for these two packs. Obviously, it's the second and third twin ship packs that we've seen. The first being the Resistance Y-Wings. And I picked up a pack of the Resistance Y-Wings. I only picked up one. And I don't know how I feel about it. It's blatantly a cash grab of like, oh, people are probably only going to buy one of these, so let's make them buy two. But then I don't know that I care, because I think the price per ship is still cheaper than given the new pricing. So like you gain with one hand and lose with the other kind of thing. Yeah, you're spending more overall if you only want one, but I feel like you can get better value out of the packs. It's a bit weird. I don't know. Like I say, I don't know how I feel. So, what do you guys think?
No, that makes sense to me. I get it what you're saying from with maybe one ship like the Y-Wing, but like the Z95s, for example, if they are able to be taken in Moss, like we think they probably will be, it's probably a better value.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I think more is better when it comes to ships.
I would rather see this type of pack than the squadron packs. Right, the big examples for me are the Guardians of Hope, I think, or whatever the Republic one is, where the only way I can get V19s is by buying this box. Or if you play First Order and you want the TIE Whisper, you have to buy it with 2 extra bombers. So if I wanted to run 2 Whispers and 2 bombers, I have to buy 4 bombers to get my 2 Whispers.
Yeah.
I think so. Like, the squadron boxes are great. I just wish they only did reprints of ships in squadron boxes and leave this kind of pack for the dual packs. But I mean,
yeah,
I think
I get
that's a live and learn kind of thing. Well, 3rd edition,
Well,
they can fix that.
you have me in the camp, and of course, this is Ed thought he was right, and then Chris showed him how wrong he was. Scenario where I'm in the camp where let's assume, for the sake of the moment, the game's going to continue on, and everything's going to be happy. The game's going to continue to roll. Of them maneuvering their way out of these squadron packs and doing quote unquote starter packs for individual armies. In which case, you would have that scenario where maybe it comes with 3 ships, maybe it comes with 4. But each of those ships is also individually for sale if you wanted to solve that problem. That would be the model I would like to see them transition into.
Yeah. But yeah, that was my only closing thoughts, I suppose, on that. Did you have anything, Sean?
No, I think I've talked out on that one.
Yeah. Cool. So, main topic.
I'm done too. Thanks. I'm done too. Thanks for asking.
It's okay. I'm just cognizant of, at some point you're going to be like, oh, these earpods have just run out. I can't hear you guys anymore.
No. Luckily for you, I always keep my shit fully charged, so everything was coming off 100% charge.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to the fun stuff. Let's move on to the main topic and the main rules: the hot shot events. I don't know how you want to go through this one. There's the opening parts of this. None of this genuinely surprised me. And these are pretty standard rules as far as player responsibilities, what you're responsible for bringing. I did like to take note that as far as customization was concerned, some of the rules I think are reprinted from FFG. I think, but
so there's a lot of Crisis Protocol wording in this. So the cool stuff for miniatures, I assume that's what you're talking about, customization.
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah. So the big things that I would like to highlight from this, which we did highlight when they did it because they added this section as an errata in the rules reference guide, I believe. Mm-hmm. The fact that you can take any YT 1300, so you can have a Lando's Falcon to be Rey's Falcon, which previously was not the case.
Correct.
And the fact that they, just for all of those fucking dickheads who keep going on about it, I love all of you if you're listening, but you're still a fucking dickhead. Will. If 2 or more miniatures in play could potentially touch, players may remove a miniature from its plastic peg until the conflict is resolved. So all of those people who were whining, saying, "Oh, you can't remove your ship from the peg, it's in the rules now. Well, AMG don't know what they're doing." They added it in just for you. Stop whining.
Yep, it's there.
Because so I say Will, because Will was running one of his ships on 17 pegs. Well, I can't take it off my peg, so it's got to be stupidly high so it doesn't bump anything. Fuck off. You're doing it because you think you're being funny. Just letting you know.
you also have those people that will use like the epic stands for their large base ships just to be able to kind of clear some space, which I mean, I used to think was kind of cool. I get it. Myself putting 17 pegs on a small ship, I'd be afraid of like the wind stopping over and snapping those things off.
I'm just being mean because I can.
I know.
It's
of the other stuff
it's not bullying when they opt in, or so I'm told.
Some of the other stuff I just wanted to point out, the majority of your parts, if you're going to be customizing, have to be from the X-Wing Miniatures games, which does open the door for adding custom bits and pieces onto your models if you so desire. They do, however, have to be identifiable as the ship that you're going for. And I'm pretty sure that FFG had cleared this one up a long time ago, the people that were making like the SpongeBob YT1700, like you can't put copyrighted logos, symbols, iconic elements, or other iconography onto your ships that are not Star Wars.
I mean, that's just standard.
Right.
What they...
Because don't get me wrong, I've seen cool paint schemes.
I
really
feel like we've had this conversation before, but this is basically, you can't have... They cannot endorse the... I'm trying to figure out the correct... The terminology I can use that isn't going to get us cancelled. But previously to 2016, a Trump decimator was funny. After 2016, it stopped being funny and started being very bad.
Stop being funny for some people.
But
just to be fair.
No, you can't. They cannot endorse that as being okay. I'm not saying it's because of Trump or whatever. I'm saying it because X-Wing Miniatures game cannot endorse a political candidate.
Right, exactly.
So, obviously, and it's like, you as a player could paint a picture of yourself taking a shit on a can of Coca-Cola. They can't endorse that because then it opens them up to issues, shall we say. So it's easier to just say, no, you can't do any of that. And then if you do it anyway, that's on you. But AMG didn't say it was okay. So yeah, don't worry about it. If you painted your ships, don't just do what you want. No one's going to care. But when someone asks, you can't say AMG said it was okay.
Precisely.
A couple things I have highlighted. I went through and actually highlighted stuff. I'm going to go through it real quick.
You did. I knew this was coming.
I'm excited. I hope you're going to mention the next one that people are going to whine about that I get to just laugh at. It's going to be fun.
So dice.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, so I've already seen this today.
Sean, nothing but net. You were right.
I've seen this today already. People just peeing down their legs about dice. But the rules say player must use official Star Wars X-Wing dice. This includes the dice found in the core box, dice expansions, and or promotional material distributed by Atomic Mass Games. Players may not use replacement dice. Now, what I've seen in the arguments today is, I can't use my World's dice because they were given to me by Fantasy Flight and not Atomic Mass. Fuck off, people, please.
Like, seriously?
Yeah.
They're official dice. You got them through events.
Yeah.
So that's that promotional or material distributed, we'll say, by Atomic Mass Games, previously Fantasy Flight.
Yeah. They should have.
It's not even that they should have had. It's some stuff has to go unsaid. Because again, if FFG release something with dice, and this says that you can use FFG dice.
Oh, okay. Fair point.
Right, yes. What about if FFG at some point releases an X-Wing dice that's got all hits on it? I don't fucking know. But then it's just...
Because the way that I look at this is that X-Wing is no longer an FFG product. It's now an Atomic Mass product.
Yeah, the legacy carries over.
That is correct.
The only one I could give you the argument for is if someone specifically went up to a TO and was like, I want to use the dice from Outer Rim. Then it's like, oh, well, they're not X-Wing dice, and it's made by FFG, but I don't know. Like, that's the only argument I can see. But if you bought Outer Rim just to use a dice in X-Wing, you still got a
Well,
game.
the one thing is, you're also not going to know the difference.
No, you're not.
I was just gonna point that out. I challenge someone to set those up against.
No, but that's what I mean. Like, you have to go and
you'd
have to go and tell them.
Yes, you have to make it a point, which is ridiculous.
Which feels like you're making it a point to make it a point, not because you want to use those dice.
Yeah, exactly. So another thing I saw today was about measuring tools and having outside.
The point that I wanted to hit on.
Yeah, measuring tools from the secondary market, things like that. But in reality, it says players using substitutions must check with the EO,
the
which
event
is the event organizer.
Oh, baby.
Event organizer.
Before the event begins, so the cool tools can be verified as being correct size and shape.
I have never, ever had that checked.
Well, the other thing is, what people were bitching about is that Fantasy Flight Asmodee never put out measuring tools. Yes, they did. It's in the template kit.
Yeah.
So the big thing for this is that
go ahead.
There are known sets of templates that are like actually advantage template. It's a joking term, but obviously the joke is founded in truth. I can't remember off the top of my head which set it was that were absolutely ridiculous, but certain players might still be using them.
Yeah.
And these are the templates where you can line up in bullseye, and after 2 forward moves, you're no longer in bullseye.
Right.
Because there's that much wiggle room in the templates. Now, as an EO, I can say nope.
Yep.
Whereas previously, I couldn't.
Okay. Yeah. The next thing is they talk about components being essential components.
Oh, can you pause for a second?
Yeah.
Because there's one other piece I want to highlight on the measuring tools. Players may not use measuring devices that do not have an equivalent tool supplied by Atomic Mass Games. Now, there are other measuring devices that I have seen that people have brought to tables to measuring, I don't know, if they're doing measuring arcs, if they're measuring this, they're measuring this. Like some of the laser cut stuff like people have used before just for those other purposes. Those are now officially not permitted.
But I'm going to guarantee you, if you walk to the table with a laser that actually is straight, not the curved little pen light lasers that you can get, I don't think they're going to give it crap.
I wasn't thinking so much about those as I was some of the
there's ones that you can put on the front of the bases that give you the arc extension.
I've seen that.
Those, or the ones that allow you to pre-set up like formations. Like I've seen some of those that you can actually those you now no longer can use.
Right. And I think this will all become intuitive as more events. Number one, it's still up to the event organizer. How you play X-Wing. So, and I'll talk about it at the end, what's going on locally, which is just ridiculous. But I want to talk about really quick components. It says essential components are ship bases, obstacles, devices, and tools. These components have a specific size and are supplied with ships or cards that require them. Non-essential components are tokens, markers, shields, and charges, turret arc indicators, and ship IDs. Players are never allowed to modify their essential components, but may replace them. Players using substitution should check with the EO before the event begins, so the tokens can be verified as being the correct size and shape. Players may modify or replace non-essential components as long as the tokens used are clear and do not interfere with gameplay, and they don't mean transparent clear. They mean clearly that token.
Yeah.
Right.
And like Chris brought up a couple shows ago about the person on Etsy who was making the token packs and the satellites, the objective packs and stuff, which I did purchase.
Yeah, mine arrived as well. I've not got to use them yet because I haven't managed to play. But
I was hoping to use them at the first tournament in Omaha, but we'll talk about that later. Yeah. So squad lists, it clarifies squad lists. It's from the rules reference. So if you have questions about that, I like the sportsmanship clarifications. It gives you a little bit
Can we?
more.
I hate to
Yeah.
pause on this and squad this one. So the only point that I have mentally noted on this one is obviously because there isn't an official app. There's not going to be an official app. Technically, when showing up to an event, you cannot print your yet another squad builder 2.5 list out and turn it in. You actually have to turn it in on the sheets that were provided for them. So you can use it to build your squads and get your points down correctly, but ultimately, in the end, when attending an event, it has to be in a written form on those forms.
Where does it say that?
Player must submit a squad list to the EOs at the event beginning of the day and may not change them. A squad list is built as described on page 20 of the rules reference and can be found at asmodee.com/X-Wing documents.
Okay, let's have a look at page 20 of the rules reference then. Page 20. Because I feel like there's going to be a lot of grey here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the reason why I brought this question up to the panel here, because technically what they're saying is you need to turn in a physical document from atomicmass.com/X-Wing-documents.
So what? Oh, have I lost
Now,
it?
is that rules as written as opposed to rules as intended?
No, so
No.
it's described on page 20 of the Star Wars X-Wing rules reference. Page 20 rules reference. I didn't see anything about squad lists on there.
Neither.
Maybe
It says, all this says when building their squad list, players need to be aware whether the event is standard or extended. In a standard event, the squad list may use only ships and upgrades that are available in the standard format. In an extended event, squad list may use ships and upgrades that are available in extended format. The points documents, which can be found at Atomic Mass Games documents, detail which cards and upgrades are allowed in each format.
Yeah, no, I was talking about the paragraph above it, though.
I know what you're talking about, but I don't remember seeing
page
anything
20
on page
doesn't
20.
have anything about squad lists on it.
It does not, yeah.
Interesting. Errata.
And then when playing in a
can
standard
only
event,
assume that it's moved somewhere else, but yeah.
I'm sure it was. I'm sure that is just a sheer typo. But my point is, like, we know how some of the rules lawyery members of our community can be.
I think they mean page 19, but because that's got setup, which includes building your squad. But yeah, there's nothing in there about squad lists. But yeah,
this states a squad list is built as described on page 20.
Yeah,
and being described, it's the squad list is the list of ships you're bringing using the points. The points off of. It's all on page 20, I believe, on how to build it, but it's not about squad lists.
The physical actual pages. All right, maybe I'm misreading that then. I'm fine. I'm totally fine being wrong with that because I'd rather not start that fire.
I get where that could be just because of the way the words are written.
Yeah, but no. But basically, you can't build a 200 point list.
Right.
Correct.
Let's see. Really quick,
sportsmanship. One of my favorites.
Well, there isn't much in here. I mean, truthfully, sportsmanship just talks about missed opportunities. The margin of error, objects are sometimes moved accidentally or placed inexactly during normal course of the game. This is acceptable within a reasonable margins. Player must not abuse this margin of error, however, and they must use the components included with the game to help them be as accurate as possible. If a player feels their opponent is abusing this margin of error, or if they need to make particularly difficult movement, they should call a marshal for assistance. Pretty much has been there, since day one. But I could see it because now you have more crap on the table.
So, one of the things we'll get to about when I ran the events, we'll get into this a little bit, but there's some interesting stuff to talk about to do with like margin of error and that kind of thing. But we'll get there.
And remember, what I'm reading about talks about this is all in the hot shot event. So this is kind of an all-inclusive for Hotshot, but I'm sure all this spills over into any other style of event that they decide exists. The other thing I want to talk about, does anybody want to talk about anything on event organizer responsibilities other than round times?
Just obviously
the
that
round
it's
time-
changed to event organizer rather than TO or any of that
Correct.
stuff. I find needless changes are always fun. I love it. Yep.
Yeah.
I'm an EO now.
Yeah, you're an EO instead of a TO. So,
I mean, I kind of like this is just picking hers kind of thing, but it's not necessarily a tournament, is it? We just all want to come together and have a nice, fun event. Not necessarily a competitive tournament. So yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
That goes into the kind of thing they spoke about initially when they took over, and everyone panicked that OP would be dead when they said that they want to run other things. So this comes into like the Aces High. It's not an Aces High tournament, it's an Aces High event. If they do like that droid football soccer thing they've spoken about, I can't remember what it's called, the droid you're looking for, whatever that kit was called. That's not really a tournament, is it? It's an event.
Right.
So I get it. I'm on board. I'll bitch and moan about it and still call myself a TO because I'm stupid, but whatever.
Yeah. Scenario selection. So this is the other part of it. During each event round, Star Wars X-Wing games will be played using a different scenario. That's pretty plain and simple.
Pretty plain and simple. And I'm going to take a wild guess that most TOs are going to have, or I'm sorry, there I just did it. Most EOs are going to already have pre-decided what that randomly generated order is for round 1, round 2, round 3, round 4.
Or you can draw.
Yeah,
you do the same thing you do with Armada, and you just draw it.
I had all 4 of them printed out, and I just had them laid out on my table, flipped one over. That was when we played. Then took it out of the pool, flipped over the next one.
I mean, you could do it if you want to go into it with it totally laid out. That's fine. Just don't tell anybody what it is. People don't have the
only thing I'm thinking is ahead of time is making sure that all the objective markers are available at the tables in between rounds, kind of thing. Like if one's going to have, just the 1 versus the 5, or that's the only thing that I'm thinking about for as far as an EO's perspective, of just making sure the tables are prepared. That's it.
Yep. Okay, the big one, the big crybaby piece on this now is event round times. Event round times, and I'm not reading the top part, but it says the EO should never tell players the remaining time in the round. If a game has not concluded when the time for an event round runs out, the player finishes the current game round and calculate their scores. The base round time is 75 minutes. So we haven't changed the base time.
Hasn't changed.
To create a variable time length, roll 1 attack die and 3 defense dice. If the attack die result is a crit or a hit, add minutes to the round timer equal to the number of evades and focus rolled on the defense dice. If the attack roll is blank, remove minutes from the round equal to the number of evade and focus. My God, how hard is this shit? If the attack die is a focus, do not add or remove any time from the round timer. I have seen people just like cascade into, just fits of rage over this, and this is number one. It does
minus 3 minutes.
Hold on. Right? I want to say this. That's correct. It's plus or minus 3 minutes, but it doesn't affect the fucking players at all.
Right.
They don't know.
It shouldn't affect the players at all.
It shouldn't at all. And it says games end after 12 rounds of play when the round time. The game end after 12 rounds of play when the round timer ends or when one player wins the scenario, whichever occurs first. So 3 typical win conditions, basically.
So this addresses something that we've spoken about quite often, of that last turn in a game. It's like, if the game ends now, I win.
Right.
Man, I've got a whole lot of decisions to make because I know how long's left in the game.
If I continue to run and run the clock out, I win. But if I don't know what the clock is...
Yeah, and all it does is remove the certainty of that. You can people are still going to do it if they feel like they're near the end of a game. They're going to either speed up or slow down, depending on it's a. And I'm not even saying there's anything wrong with it inherently. It's a natural thing of like, man, I'm behind. I need to get caught up, so I need to play. Like, and the good thing about it is there's a finite number of turns. So when we found out it was going to be a round limit, it was one of the things that I mentioned that I thought was good, was that it might stop that. But all this does is remove that certainty of like, well, if I just take my time picking these actions, then they're playing against the clock and I win. And changing the as Ed said, it's plus or minus 3 minutes, and I 100% believe that the TO should do this in secret.
Oh, agreed, 100%.
And like, I'm gonna be honest, I probably wouldn't even roll a dice. I would just pick one of those numbers and just adjust it by that amount and not roll a dice. I don't care, whatever. Some rounds might be 73 minutes, some rounds might be 77, doesn't matter. And ultimately, none of that shit actually matters anyway, because like the event I ran, I was giving people time to get set up, which means all the dials are set for turn 1 anyway.
Right.
Like, the timer is starting after the planning phase of turn 1. So they're not playing a 75-minute game, are they?
No, they're playing about an 80-minute game.
Yeah. So
now the reason why I skipped the first part of this and I'm saving it for the last is because of this. Each event round of Star Wars X-Wing is a variable length, giving players a certain amount of time to complete their games. The EO should start the timer for an event round after most players have found their seats and begun setup. Yeah. So the beauty of it is that your event timer starts. Doesn't matter if you're at your fucking table or not.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is the TO's best friend rule right here.
This gets your events on a schedule.
On a schedule.
Yeah.
This is what lacked in the other ones because it was never given out there when you start the round. So most of the time you're starting the round when everybody's at their tables. But if people are dallying at the, at the pairings wall or whatever it is, and I've seen it so many times because you can't get people away from pairings walls because they want to see who their friends are playing or what position they're in or how far up and down, taking pictures of the thing. Yeah. As an EO now, I can just start the clock as most people are at the table, and now it's on my time, not their time.
Yeah. Yep.
Which I did anyway. You got to remember when I ran events, I think by the second round, players knew. They need to move quick and get to their spots. And because I didn't screw around, if it broke 90 minutes, it pissed me off,
So all I was doing, Sean, at the event I just ran, was I'd set a timer for when the time would start, and I'd tell people, and I didn't tell them how long the timer was. So I've set a timer, once this beeps, your round starts.
Right. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
You basically have two timers, what I call the pairings timer when people can go up and see the pairings, and when the round starts. This is perfect. I love that.
Yeah.
Man.
I thought you might.
Okay, pairings are basically similar, Swiss style pairings in Hot Shot. If not all players will play all rounds of the event. The EO should announce before the event begins how many rounds the event will run before any progression cuts are made, which is standard. And when you get into tournaments, you pretty much know because you can scale, you can play scale by how many players equals how many rounds. There's easy way to do it. When necessary, a player may be assigned a bye during a round instead of being paired against an opponent. That player receives a win and earns 18 mission points for that round. Still not happy that it's not 20, but it's better than 150 or 100.
Well, it doesn't help. We'll get into it a little bit later. It doesn't help the schedule either.
Correct. Well, it doesn't help your opponent's strength of schedule, and that's the problem that I have with it.
Yeah.
The rules for when to assign a buy are detailed below. Okay. So players can leave an event early in several ways. If a player no longer wishes to continue playing, that player must notify the EO of their intent to drop, which you'll still have people just walk out, not tell
Oh
them.
God, yeah. I'm
The-
1-0-2. I'm done. Pack up, please.
The EO will avoid pairing that player in future rounds by dropping them from the event. Players should notify the EO of their intent to drop as soon as possible, and the EO may apply penalties to players who fail to do so, such as withholding prizes, if any, at their discretion. That's usually not an issue because most players drop, because they're not in prizes. Players can also be dropped if they do not appear within a reasonable time limit for a round in which they are paired, or if they are no longer able to play for any other reason. This is interesting. Players can request that the EO allow them to rejoin an event from which they were dropped. A player who rejoins in this way is assigned an unpaired loss for each round they did not participate in.
There's a sentence missing from this.
There is.
If the
Go ahead,
EO
Chris.
allows them to rejoin.
That's exactly it. Because here's the deal. So I don't know if Cryodex is still a viable software for X-Wing, but
It's
now
not. Chris hasn't updated it.
Okay. So now if you're using software, whoever is making software needs to go in and make that a viability within their software to bring people back into tournaments.
No,
it's such an odd case of how, honestly, how often
literally, there's multiple reasons why I would drop you. And I wouldn't let you rejoin.
Neither would I.
Like,
I'm saying, but what I'm saying is that the event, because remember, we're talking about
never say never, obviously, but yeah, go on, Sean.
Well, let me ask you this then, Chris, because now you're talking about this is no longer a tournament, this is an event. So their view of it is, and I feel that I'm right on this, is that their view of it is that this is a community-based game, community decision. Guy had to go because his wife was nagging. The kids were stuck out, and she'd been sitting out in the car for 4 hours.
I mean, we're an inclusive podcast, Sean. So the lady
the
had to go because her husband was nagging.
Because her husband was nagging because he was sitting in the car, for 4 hours with the kids, waiting for her to get the tournament over. And the kids needed dinner, so they had to go to McDonald's, and she had the money, and blah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I really,
the reverse of that is where you have the tournament starts at 2, I work at 1, I got stuck in traffic, the event already started, so just give me a loss for the first round and just put me in the second one.
Right, because I still want to play.
Because I've had that, because I still want to play.
No, I agree, and that's what I mean. But those aren't people dropping and then rejoining. And that's I think there's a rabbit hole to go down here, which isn't really necessary, because I think that this is probably not for most EOs. I would guess that this bullet point wasn't really necessary, but whatever, it's in there. Cool.
I agree. Yeah, it's in there.
But I will say that a player can request that the EO allow them to rejoin. It doesn't say the EO has to let them.
Correct. The other thing is at the beginning of the event, if you're the EO, you can tell people, if you drop, you will be dropped completely from the tournament. If you want to play more games, do pickup games.
Right, not even that. Right. If you want to drop, you can drop. If you need to miss a round, tell me that that's what you need to do.
Yeah, that would be the other way to do it too.
But yeah,
communication.
Be kind to your EOs. Be kind to your EO.
So a progression cut, we all know what that is. End of match. Victory. One player wins the match. So the game timer runs out. So this is the end of match, how it works, and how they end. Victory, one player wins the match. So one person gets their 20 points before the other person. Game's over. Doesn't matter how many rounds. Doesn't matter where the timer's at. The game timer runs out. The players finish the current round of the game. After the cleanup phase, the player with the most mission points is considered the winner. Draw. So here's an interesting one. Draw. If no player has This drives me absolutely freaking nuts. But anyway,
I knew it.
If no player has won the match for any reason, both players are awarded a draw. And then finally, concession, because I saw this brought up today. Concession, one player voluntarily concedes the match. The conceding player receives a loss and earns 0 mission points, and their opponent receives a win and earns 20 mission points. Collusion between players is not permitted under the sportsmanship rules of this document. If a marshal believes players are attempting to manipulate the scoring system, the player should either be given warnings or ejected from the event. So this goes back to the past with me that got me in trouble way back when on the last show, which nobody cared about, but one person in the chat and all that, and then brought the show, on point with if you and your opponent agree, because neither are winning and one wants to go on, you can't do that. So,
Correct.
and it's in the rules. It's written in the rules.
It also eliminates the Roanoke 8 situation where all the players...
Does it?
Yeah, well, it eliminates collusion.
I mean, it basically does state...
So, the second you allow a draw...
Yeah, I agree.
You have to allow intentional draws.
That is correct, because both players can sit at the table and not move a ship. For 72 to 78 minutes.
Yeah.
But then this should come back into that whole other part of the...
What I would say again is what should stop the Roanoke 8 is not having shit event organizers.
Correct.
Running the correct number of rounds.
I want to push back on that a little because the way that the Marshals believes that players are attempting to manipulate the scoring system by having both players stand there and nobody moves the ship for 75 minutes. That's manipulating the scoring system blatantly.
Well, Chris and I were having a conversation.
Is it manipulating the scoring system?
Yeah, there's no games being played.
But what's the difference between a draw and an intentional draw?
There is none.
There is none. From a scoring perspective, I agree with your perspective in that. I do.
Okay. So,
however,
let me put this across then, Ed. The last turn of the game, you've got a ship with one hull left, and you're drawing with your opponent. You have the choice to turn in or turn out. If you turn out, you know that it's going to be a draw. Are you manipulating the scoring?
But that's not a collusion between two players. That's one player deciding to make the best of their situation, because I still do genuinely believe in a draw is better than a loss. It's still a point as opposed to 0. And if I have an opportunity, if I turn out, I can pull an extra point out of this.
What I would say is concession. So the collusion rule here is under concession, right?
Mm-hmm. It's not under draw.
It's not under the sportsmanship section.
Fair.
I'm not disagreeing with you that an intentional draw is manipulating the overall standings of an event. But what I would say is that it's not colluding in a underhanded way to do so.
Right. Because when you get to a cut, we know this from Magic, Ed. When you get to a cut and you have the amount of rounds that determine... So usually what happens is you have 7 players that are in and 2 players that are on that line. And the draw puts one of those, the one person that's drawing gets in because of that. And the other one doesn't get in because strength of schedule or whatever wasn't strong enough. It always works out that way. That's how these things work. It's either 3 players or 2 players that are caught when it comes to drawing.
Yep.
And all 2 players have to do is sit there before the game, before they ever walk up to the table and say, hey, if I play you, or 7 players can do this, get together in a group because they know they're the leaders in the scoring. And before they ever walk up to the table, they could be out in the break area getting pops or whatever. Hey, let's just all draw.
So, I mean, and
it's not collusion because it's not in the draw rules. It specifically states.
So I will concede that point. You are correct in the fact that it is not in the draw rules. It is in the concession rules. Totally agree. 100%.
So
I do wish, however, it were
so
in its own set of rules in the
why
sportsmanship.
why is an intentional draw okay in Magic?
I don't. First of all, if we want to get into that boat, I don't believe it's fair in Magic either. I don't.
Well,
Personally, and maybe this is just me and my own idealistic. All right, I need to rewind a hair. I am on record as stating that the Roanoke 8, the players that elected to do that at that tournament, were following the letter of the rules as they were written at the time. I do not fault them for what they do, and I do not look down on what they did. What I'm thinking of is more along the lines of the spirit of the game, which is the reason why that rule was changed for that reason, was that the players below them, if they had won, it's what it does is it's trying to eliminate those feel bads moments.
No, yeah. But do you know what else eliminates that feel bad moment? Fucking winning your games. Don't be shit. If you care enough that you're gonna get upset that someone finished with so let's take a 4-round before a cut event. 7 points makes a cut. If you finished on 6 points, maybe you should have fucking won an extra game. Maybe you should have drawn an extra game.
I was just going to say drawn.
It's not my fault that you lost that game. And it's not the players' fault that they won their games early and had that leeway. It's not their fault. You weren't good enough. You didn't make the cut. If buts and maybes are fucking worth nothing, I can empathise with you. If they'd have played their game and then the other person had 20-0'd them and I would have got in because my strength of schedule would have been fuck off, just win. Don't be a shitter.
Maybe that's where my empathy... all right, legitimately for me, I guess for me, it's integrity of the game. For me, it's...
this is the only way... If the second a draw is allowed, the only way to have integrity in the game is to allow an intentional draw. Because if you disallow it, you're encouraging the exact thing you don't want, because then it's under the table.
Right.
As soon as you allow it, it's in the open, and everyone knows. So you know that you have to win, because if you don't win these games, you get to a point where some other people, your fate isn't in your own hands because they can just draw.
Yeah.
But if you disallow
I'm willing to concede the fact that I'm on the wrong side of this one. I do genuinely believe that. I get that. There's just a big.
And where this comes into play is because you're no longer dealing with MOV. You're dealing with event
precisely,
points.
which is where my next point was going to go into. Is it led into the fact that we got into the 3-0-1 scoring system again?
Yeah.
After we had gotten through a much better system that as close as you can possibly get to eliminate the possibility.
I would disagree that it was better. So.
Well, in terms
everyone stop and let me put my point across. Sorry. So X-Wing is a terrible game to play competitively because it doesn't have a definitive win condition. If you want to have a winner and a loser, you have to play to destruction. If you have an untimed game and you keep going and someone wins the game fairly, that is fine. The second you take away the win condition from outside of what the actual game is and make it, I can't remember, final salvo, that is an arbitrary way of determining the winner because your game has failed to provide an adequate solution. A draw is an adequate solution to that problem.
That is correct. It's why draws are allowed in chess, which is one of the oldest games ever. If you play in chess tournaments, draws are allowed.
Well, draws are allowed in chess because the rules allow for effect of a stalemate, where the fact that the next player physically can't take a move. But
ultimately, a stalemate is because the game is equal at a point.
Yeah,
and that's what it comes down to in X-Wing. Just like chess, there is a point of equilibrium. Time runs out, guys are tied. Time runs out, nobody's killed anything. That type of thing. That's what creates in-game draws. But Chris is correct. By having the intentional draw rule, it's the reason why you have that now is because you're running a tournament and there are prizes at stake. So there's what's called the greed quotient involved in this, as anything else.
Yeah, and I've heard that
because
before.
Prizes are money. We had this conversation way back when where I was not for the Roanoke 8, but the ripple effect was pretty big off of that. With this one, this is what bothers me, and I'm going to talk about this. So in event scoring, this is the thing that bothers me the most, which you either have to do MOV or something similar to MOV or use strength of schedule. So the tiebreaker states if 2 or more players have the same number of event points, tiebreakers are used to determine each player's standings within that group. Tiebreakers are used in the following order until all players within that group have been given a standing. And when they talk about groups, it's the group of players that are in the same event point category.
Correct.
So this is also prior to end cuts. This is how you would pair rounds out if you're doing it manually, stuff like that. Strength of schedule. A player's strength of schedule is calculated by dividing each opponent total event points by the number of rounds that opponent has played, adding the results of each opponent played, and then dividing that total by the number of opponents that player has played. The player with the highest strength of schedule score is ranked above all other players. In the group, not yet ranked, sorry. The players with the second highest strength of schedule is ranked second among all players in the group, not yet ranked, and so on.
Yeah.
So
go on.
I'll let you go first, Chris.
So what I feel like I'm jumping the gun slightly because I'm really excited because I preempted this conversation by posting the Excel spreadsheet in Podcast Crap for the standings from the event I ran, and then I reran the event in Tabletop TO, which uses the correct scoring method, just so I could show how it changes, which proves the statement I've hammered home about MOV being an inadequate way of being your first tiebreaker.
Before I ruin recording, can I open my desktop app and have my app open at the same time without be logged into both of them without jumping out?
Who knows?
Who knows? We'll find out.
Here, we'll find out. If I jump out, that's what happens.
If you jump out, we'll deal with it.
Well, so far I haven't jumped out.
Yeah, so I ran a 4-round event with 10 players. The winner won all 4 games, so it was a clear winner.
Clear winner, clear decisive winner.
Yeah. Then we had second place was a clear second place, having won 3 games and lost 1.
Mm-hmm.
Then third and fourth place tied in the last round. So we're tied as third and fourth on...
They tied against each other?
Yeah, they tied against each other in the last round.
Oh, interesting.
I was so excited because there hadn't been a tie, and they added up the points at the end. Like, oh man, we're both on 18 points. It's a tie. Then we had 3 players on 6 points, having won 2, lost 2. 2 players.
Yeah.
So I ran it as the differential between your points. So the number of points scored minus the number of points scored against you was my first tiebreaker, which is effectively MOV under a different name. Right? So that's how I rank them. If you then look below, where you rank them by strength of schedule, weirdly, the player who had the highest MOV in that category of 6s had the lowest strength of schedule, dropped down 2 places. The same point band, where it was the 2 players on 3 points, swapped places. The player who had the higher MOV had the lower strength of schedule. Weird. It's almost like playing weaker players lets you score more points. Strange. This is why I've always supported strength of schedule in spite of its problems. This is why I believe strength of schedule is a better second tiebreaker, or first tiebreaker, I should say, than MOV.
Well, go ahead, Sean.
Well, I agree with you on that, Chris. Just because MOV, there's different pieces of MOV involved. There are negatives, and the negatives are pretty big, but you are correct. This is the best way to do it instead of MOV because, MOV creates And here's why buys. This is the problem with MOV, is because the buy devalued the MOV.
Yep.
Where in event points, it's so when you have 200 points, and if you take them by percentages, it's 20 points per percentage for 10%. You were at 15, 75% compared to having 18 out of 20. So you're getting more with the buy system in this than you would in MOV. Because here's the problem. If you had a buy in the MOV system, you're halfway between a draw then and a win. So anybody that took a buy, they didn't play around, but they're already down 50 points. You've given the top player in that event 50 points over you.
Yeah.
And so you're already behind the 8 ball. With strength of schedule, it at least puts everybody on an even value. Even though the buy is only worth 18, you're still on an even value.
When they're calculating their strength of schedule, is it different than, and maybe it's just me, maybe it's other places that I've done a strength of schedule before, but to me it seems like they're doing it a little bit different in the fact that it's the number of rounds played divided by the number of points. So if you have that player that only scored 2 points in round 1, they scored 4 points in round 2 and decided to drop the event, them dropping the event doesn't necessarily hurt your opponents, in the fact that it's only going to be divided by 2, as opposed to divided by 5 or 6 or whatever the number of rounds is, and making that number much, much lower. So I read that and went, oh, I really like the way they're doing it, because I've never seen anyone do it that way before.
Mm-hmm. And that's the difference. And that's how you fix the problem.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. I think that you still have the issue with strength of schedule in that you cannot, in a large event, you cannot control your first round pairings because X-Wing does not have a seeding system.
Correct. It's all random.
Yeah.
Correct.
Like, we don't award people like buys in early rounds of Swiss. It's not a round robin. It's not got without seeding, Swiss tournaments don't work. Like, inherently, if you are trying to find the best player and want to run a Swiss system, you need to have seeding.
Correct.
But that's
you have to place.
You
have to place top, first, bottom if you're looking for the best.
Yeah.
Now there are things in there that do affect that, but starting out giving a player an advantage, we'll say, in a Swiss tournament, it doesn't happen because of the seeding doesn't exist. And here's why. And I had this happen a few times where you do random pairings, and guess what happens? The 2 best players play against each other in the first round.
Yep.
So now one of them is already in the 1-loss category, and is literally playing their tournament every round after that for their life to hopefully get to that 8 or 9 position that when people intentionally draw, they don't make the cut.
Right. At that juncture, they're trying to make the cut.
Yeah. But this strength of schedule does fix a lot of the problems. So.
Yeah. But I'm overall, so we're basically at the end of this document now.
We are. Yep.
We have Fangs out, but we'll get that at the end.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of this. I wanted to talk about, obviously, so the event I ran, I did it with the same 3 for a win, 1 for a draw, 0 for a loss. I contemplated doing 3-2-1 because I was like, oh man, people might feel bad when they lose, but you know what? Just fuck off. I don't care. Just be good. Don't lose.
Yeah. Don't give out juice boxes. Don't give out juice boxes for just showing up.
Oh, and especially, I mean, it sounds really callous, and it obviously is part of this is the showmanship of doing a show. Like, the way we do prizing is we draft all the way down, so first place gets the trophy.
First pick, they get the first pick.
So they get handed a trophy, and then first pick. We drafted down to 10th, then 10th place got 2 picks.
Yep.
Then we went back to the first play.
It's called a snake. It's called a snake, where
Yeah.
you're going first to last. Then the next round, last picks first, and it goes the opposite way.
No, I didn't do it opposite way. We went back to top. I just gave last player, got basically an 11th place pick for the 10-player event as well.
Gotcha.
Then I went back to top. And I make sure there's enough pricing. Like, we went through the draft like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
And basically,
I did that. I've done that many times with tournaments.
Yeah. And I think it's the most inclusive way of doing it, because once players have got their acrylic, that sits on the table, so you don't have to place as high. So it takes some of that pressure off needing the win to get the thing you're missing, kind of thing. And,
right.
I find it the most inclusive way of doing these type of events, especially because we have a healthy mix of like new players, casual players, and like people who like contend for like going to Worlds and making day 2 and that kind of thing.
Yep.
So, it's a good balance there.
Really quick, just let's go through the rest of the tiebreakers. Combined mission points. The players with the most mission points across the event is ranked above all other players with the same number of event points. The player with the second most mission points across the event is ranked second among blah, 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 and so on. A player's combined mission point is the sum of their earned mission points during. So that's tiebreaker 2. And then random, if any players are still tied after all other tiebreakers have been applied, and those players go out in the parking lot and fight for it. So, ultimately, it's just random determination.
So the thing I like about that second tiebreaker, it being total mission points, is that it's there to keep you fighting. It isn't the differential. So if you're losing, your number's not getting smaller, it's still getting bigger. So where is that thing gone? Let me find it. So Adam had 91 total mission points after 4 rounds. If you divide that, it adds up to more than 20 a game, because in 1 round he finished on 33 mission points. He went it was less than 20. He claimed objectives and killed a big ship, pushed him above. Like, the swing was huge. It was like over 30. And
that goes exactly to the point that I was going to make on this one, which was, does anyone feel that strength of schedule should come is the second tiebreaker and mission points come as the first? And this is the reason why that shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
Because 20 is not the ceiling.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. The game doesn't stop at 20. And especially if you remember, the normal game rules are, if it's round 8 and we both hit 20 on the same turn, the game tells us to keep playing.
Yeah.
So 20 isn't the ceiling. So you theoretically, I think we're working it out that on some of the scenarios that you can break 40 points.
Ooh.
Yeah,
if you're 2 wins right there.
Well,
if you're playing for scenarios,
Yeah, well, you need to contest objectives and stuff so that you keep scoring them, but it's always no one's getting ahead, and then a blowout in the last round.
Right.
And it's a big old swing.
Yes.
Yep. So that's pretty much it for the big stuff, and then they have the variations, which is Fangs Out, which is a 60-minute game, plus or minus 3 minutes, which I saw people today thinking that was the total tournament time today, and they were bitching that it was now 60 minutes instead of 75. And people had to correct them because nobody reads anything anymore. They just see something and they assume and jump to the conclusion because fuck AMG, they fucked this game royally and blah, blah, blah.
Well,
I want to run a Fangs Out event. I'm super in, because you missed out timed planning phase, Sean.
Well, hold on. Before we moved on to that, with the event round timing thing, is the only thing that I found interesting about that is that the game conditions and how they end. Games end either when the 12 rounds of play are completed or when the timer runs out. Please take note, it does not say when 20 points have been reached.
Right.
So hitting 20 doesn't end a Fangs Out event. it has to play 2 time or 20 rounds.
Right. Or
12.
until all the ships are off the table.
No, it says
12 rounds.
12. Yeah, okay, yeah. That's
Yeah.
my old eyes.
Yeah, but
No.
the timed planning phase as well, man. 2 minutes.
I kind of like this.
Yeah, I'm disappointed because I stated very, very specifically that every event I would be running would be a standard format event using standard rules unless I gave more than 1 month's notice, which means my April 16th event can't be Fangs Out, but you can bet your ass my May event is going to be a Fangs Out event. I might mix it up and do a Fangs Out extended event, but yeah,
it's a pressure game.
I agree 100%.
Number one, you're already at 60 minutes, so now you're at 60 minutes with a 2-minute timer to set dials. I would love to see people play. And that was one of the bitches. Well, you can't play a swarm and Fangs Out. Then don't fucking play a swarm.
Don't play a swarm and Fangs Out. Yeah.
Well, it's okay because people are complaining that you can't fly 3 ship lists in normal X-wing. So like, be a real shame if those ace lists came back.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I love it. I'm all in on Fangs Out. I think that's super cool. There's already variations. This just to me says that they want to do fun stuff with the game and like keep pushing those boundaries. Like, yeah, these missions might play a little bit weird, but as Ed says, if you feel like the game ends without feeling resolved, play Fangs Out. I guarantee you that game will feel resolved because
that game will come to a definitive end.
Yeah. So I wanted to touch on obviously the event I ran and the way I did it. So anyone else got anything on Fangs Out before we close on that?
Nope.
No.
Yeah, so we've touched on obviously the thing. I didn't do any research. I just made it up. I was literally building the Excel spreadsheet as I was running the event because it's 10 players, man. I could run it off the back of a napkin. It's fine. But I was trying to get it going and up and running and get it to auto calculate as much as I could. And it ran extremely smoothly. The things that I found extremely helpful was I printed off the objective sheets that they did and laminated them. So either do it on heavy cardstock or laminate paper because they're narrower. It's thin.
Yeah.
If you use the acrylic tokens that me and Sean have picked up, and I got double-sided tape and taped them to the center of each mat. So the center objective was set up on every mat. Laminated and taped down. And then people get to deploy around it. And the fact that it's a thin sheet of paper means that your ships can fly over it and touch it, and it's not going to bump. It's not going to move. It just stays steady on there. That is, tip of the week takeaway for all of you EOs out there is laminate some like satellites or crates and double-sided sticky tape. Put them in the center. It just so happened that I have a natural draw. I think we went chance engagement, scramble transmission, assault on the satellite array, and then salvage, which is where you can pick it up. So it was the last scenario we played anyway, was where it would need to be removed. But it's not that hard to reset afterwards. One thing I did cover for the event is that not all game mats are created equal.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we may have touched on this in the past.
Yeah, we touched on this last episode, I think.
Yeah, so when you tape it to the center, I spoke to all the players in part of the player meeting and said, I want you to check each table you sit down before you start deploying, measure to the objective. If you think there's a disparity, you either rotate the mat 90 degrees and try it the other way, or you need to change your deployment area to be the correct distance between the two deployment areas and the center objective, rather than having the correct size deployment area. because the distance from the edge of your deployment to that center objective is more important. I believe this is off the top of my head, so don't use this to like fight any internet arguments. But I believe I mean, I can check, I'm sure. But I believe
now we're gonna log.
the play
I wanted
area.
to put something out there that was grossly inaccurate and have people railing on you tomorrow.
Setup. What's the play area is a 91 centimeter by 91 centimeter play area. 3 foot by 3 foot is the standard size. So I believe that means that a small based ship can contest the center objective turn 1 by doing a 5 straight. Because let me look this up. I have notes hidden away, so that I don't fucking lie to everybody.
What I'll probably do with my map is just put a strip of Velcro at that point. Put Velcro on the back of one of the satellites.
Yeah.
And every game, that satellite will just sit on that Velcro.
I think I'd like to get one of those pre-printed ones that come out with it already printed on the board, and then like the range 1, range 3, or whatever it is, range that have to be towards that center, kind of like pre-printed on the board, so you don't even need to move anything. The only time you'd ever need to actually put one there is the one that it can actually move.
But I'm doing I'm just saying.
Exist yet. I'm just saying that's what I would do.
I'm just saying because I'm going to build a new board out of plywood because I want to have a board to sit on my table when my son and I play, and then I'll put a like a surfactant over it to, like a sand type surface over it, so things can settle on it a little bit better. And then in that middle will be a strip of Velcro always, so we don't have to sit down and pre-measure that damn thing every single time.
You can go one better if you really wanted to, and you can like pre-drill that, and then so that it sinks into the table. And then if you have to,
I mean, I could just route it out and do that too. But that's on tabletop number 2. That doesn't get us started with it. So
I can't find it, but basically, you even need, before the event starts, you even need to know and need to let the players know if they can contest a center objective with a small base ship doing a standard move. And that comes down to the fact that some game mats are 192 centimeters. Yep. I believe the event mats are the worst offenders for being larger, and the standard Starfield mats are the worst offenders for being smaller. But basically, you need to establish that before the event and make sure that everyone's playing to the same conditions. And to me, I told my players, and again, this isn't covered in this document in any way, shape, or form. This is just my recommendation as an EO myself. And you said TO again. But it's more important to have consistency as distance to that center objective than it is to have the same size deployment zone, because there are rules for overlapping the deployment zone. If you're deploying a large base at an angle, but there are no rules for what to do if your deployment zone is like too far away from the center. So that is how I personally would recommend you do it, is have consistency, that the when you set it up, it's supposed to be 4.5 range 4.5 from the edge. So that means it should be range 3.5 from the edge of a deployment zone. So that's how you should figure out where the edge of a deployment zone is. You measure from the center back, not from the edge in. If there's any doubt, none of my players cared. Not gonna lie.
I was kind of curious to see if it even if it was even a thing.
But some people take this game more seriously than we do now in our old age.
This is true.
This is my recommendation for all of those people. The deployment zones should be taken from the center, because that distance is actually important now. Because if you work all the numbers, because the game should be played on a defined size area, everyone should be able to do it, or no one should be able to do it. You can't have it mixed. So there you go.
So can we get onto the gem of this entire rule set?
Yeah.
Timed planning phase.
Yeah.
Optional rule, obviously. However, each of the pair of players is assigned a timer at the start of every event round. During the planning phase of each game round, there is a timer set for 2 minutes and started before each player begins studying their movement dials. At the end of 2 minutes, the planning phase ends. Any ships that have not been assigned a maneuver dial at the end of the planning phase performs a stress maneuver during the activation and then must skip the perform action step. A stress maneuver is a white 2 straight maneuver. So those players, and I've got a hem-ha. Do I want to make 2 bank? Do I want to make 2 turn? If I go here, you're burning 2 minutes, bro.
So I'm on Amazon right now, seeing if I can shop for some 2-minute egg timers.
There you go.
I'm going to put a link in the show notes.
I genuinely like this rule. I think personally myself, if you have a professional slow player, they will simply move their slow playing tactics into other areas of the game that aren't the planning phase. That having been said, I like the spirit of what they're trying to do here.
I really wish this was actually the
The base rule? Yeah, I agree.
I really do. I think that would be amazing.
So
hard as hell to fish, but
2-minute sand timers, and they are 4 in a pack, and it's 11.31 Canadian.
There we go.
Prime, so table. Free delivery. I mean,
3, 2, 1, flip your timer.
You kind of want to do it with a phone or something so you can have a beeper, but I just like the idea of a sand timer. So that's probably what I'm going to do.
But that having been said, I'm with Sean 100% on this one. I wish this was part of the base rules.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
I would love to just... If you're going to melt a community down, let's just melt them down completely.
I understand, but this is Sean just being the Joker here, wanting to watch a world burn.
Absolutely.
I'm in a very defined sense that I think it can be fun, but I also think that playing a pay-to-win tournament where you get to buy tokens to give you massive advantages could be fun, you know?
This is true.
It's not for everyone.
Like I said, ideally, I think, again, it's the spirit behind what this rule represents as opposed to necessarily the rule in and of itself. And it is an attempt to eliminate some of the slow playing tactics.
I don't think it's bad. I think it's just a different event variety.
So I think the thing you're missing, Ed, is that this is in tandem with the 60-minute standard time for Fangs Out. So because
is it?
So the variation is Fangs Out. So because it's 60 minutes, they also put a finite amount of time on the planning phase.
I see. That makes much more sense. In my mind, I thought there were 2 different separate events.
No.
Fangs Out. The
runs with the planned timing phase. Okay, yeah. I gotcha.
Yeah.
I see it now. So right now there's only one other variant, which is Fangs Out, which runs into these 2 sets rules. Okay, I can totally see that now that I've looked at the rule. Personally, when I read this the first time when I was doing my homework right before the show, I was like, ooh, this is a cool event. I can imagine running an event with the base rules and this. That'd be fantastic. While I think Fangs Out is actually pretty good too, this also was, ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah. But no, that's just why I'm a big fan of a Fangs Out format. I want to try it. And
now I'm totally on board. Totally on board.
Yeah.
But it makes sense whenever you shorten up the rounds from 75 minutes to 60. You need to make that time up somewhere, and they're just going to. This is it.
I can't decide whether 2 minutes is going to be
Too
anything
long?
or not. Yeah, I would like to think that I wouldn't even notice a 2 minute timer for setting my dials.
Same here. Same.
But
Yeah, but I think
feel
you're going to
like it'll
have.
run out on me.
Oh, I think that you'll have the people that worry so much about the 2 minute timer that it affects their ability to set their dials. Not that they can't set dials in 2 minutes, but the side eye on the timer will be too much pressure.
So those people should just play Rebels, Sean, on one straight.
And I agree. 100% agree.
Okay, your decision point is, should I layer and then I just dial in 4Ks?
Yeah.
Every 3 turns, panic and decide between 2 maneuvers instead of just the one. Yeah, I'm excited. Do you want to? Shall we do a side bet and see if we can guess the winning faction from Adepticon?
Ooh.
Just for fun. I've got no idea.
I think this is a great idea. I'm going to put some thought into it. I wish you had mentioned it before, so I could have thought ahead of time. All right, if it had, I'm going to side bet because I have my loyalties whenever it comes to my X-Wing. I'm gonna go with Imperials, and it's going to be a swarm list.
Oh, so what are you turning a swarm list now?
I define swarms by at least 6 ships.
6 ships. A 6-ship Imperial list, okay.
A 6-ship Imperial list. I have no evidence to base that on. I'm just doing it.
Do you want to claim a faction, Sean, or do you want me to narrow the field for you?
No, I'm thinking. You do yours, and then I'll do mine.
I am gonna go with. I'm gonna say man. I want to say Republic, just because I'm all in on Republic at the minute. So I don't know whether it'll win or not, but I just want it to. So yeah, I'm just gonna go Republic.
So just you're taking the faction as a whole. You're taking the field. It doesn't have to be a 3-ship or a 4-ship build. It's gonna be just the field.
I don't know enough different competitive Republic builds at the minute to be able to say. But
I don't know that anybody does.
Can I ask a quick question? Is the event standard or extended?
I believe it's standard, but
I didn't go and look and see what the event was. So if it's standard,
let's find out.
So can I also pick Republic, or is that off the table?
If you want to take Republic, I'll let you have it and I'll pick something different.
Yeah, but now I almost want to qualify to say whether or not it was only because I went out on a limb and said not only is it going to be an Imperial list, but it's going to be an Imperial swarm list of at least 6 ships. I feel like that needs to qualify, because if Republic wins, how do you differentiate between the two of you? Which one do you want? I want to juice it up a little here.
That's why if Sean wants Republic, I'll change. I offered him a choice first.
No. You took it. Shit. I'm gonna go with Scum.
I was gonna say, because we all know it's not going to be First Order.
Well,
First Order won my little event.
I'm teasing. I am genuinely teasing.
Will flew 4 silencers to victory.
Ooh.
3 generic silencers and recoil, is it? The I-4?
Very nice.
Turns out having a bunch of hit points and 3 agility just lets you bully people around objectives and kill them. Yeah, it was good.
And that's 3 attack die.
Yeah. 3 attack, 3 evade. Enough health that you can fly over asteroids.
Mm-hmm. Absorb that damage.
It's funny because I'm gonna say Scum, but I'm gonna say something with Force is gonna win.
I think we both know you want Republic, so I'll pivot to
No.
I'll take the easy one.
You take Republic. You go Republic. I'll take Scum. But my side disclaimer is I think something with the Force is going to win. So there will be a ship with the Force in it that will win.
That's fair. That's fair. I can accept that.
I mean, Boba Fett got his crew swap back, so Maul all day
Yep,
long.
Maul. Yep, with Maul. So yeah,
I've still not managed to build a Separatist list with Baby Boba Fett in there yet. I think that's a sweeper at a minute. Separatist Boba Fett. There's a bunch of value in that shit, man. I'm excited.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll know in a couple days.
Yeah.
And it could be something completely out of the blue anyway. I do want to say this. If you're going to run a fucking tournament using the 2.5 rules of shipbuilding, follow the fucking scenario rules. Yeah. Please don't make it a dogfight game because it's not fair. It's not built for it.
Yeah, we were having this conversation pre-recording. I'm of the opinion that the way the points work for the loadout value does not function if you don't have objectives to score as well. If you just do it as a straight up if you want to run a dogfight, just run chance engagement 4 times.
Yep.
But you have to have something in there. I don't think you can play 2.0 with this points loadout. And sorry, I'll caveat it. You can. You just cannot expect it to be a balanced experience.
Correct. Right. Because you're going to have people taking a 225 point list in old money, and some people taking a 300 plus point list in new money.
Yeah.
It just.
It
the disparity is,
and especially if you're playing it as extended.
Yeah.
That even broadens it even further.
Here we go. Okay. Standard game mode. There you go. I knew it was. I don't know why I put all that effort in. It is standard for Adepticon.
All right. Well, I hate to do it, kiddos, but I'm going to turn into a pumpkin here shortly because I've got to get ready to go do that work thing in the morning. So, Chris, do you want to close us out with all of our house cleaning before we go?
I wanted to again thank all the patrons. It's been really good. I'm going to be working hard to get more actual content onto a Patreon. I do have some sweeper ideas that I've been sitting on for a while. Not necessarily all X-Wing related, but there's going to be more Patreon exclusive content. And I'll make sure it's spread across both equally. So I'm not just going to put something on the Lack of Focus one or something just on a Dice 8 one as like behind a paywall. If you're paying for one, you'll get access to both kind of thing. I just treat it as a different subscription model. So don't worry about being subscribed to correct one once that all fires up and starts. But I'm planning on doing stuff like encounter design and scenarios and different things for like different RPGs. Some more like written content which will sit behind the paywall for a little while. But I'll make sure that's kind of spread across both. It's been great, and I do want to try and do more. I've just hands up, like dropped the ball on how much I've been trying to give back in that regard. We haven't done our In Focus stuff for any of the shows we've all been watching and talking about.
We still got Mandalorian season 3 to cover. I mean, Book of Boba Fett.
Well, I watched Peacemaker. I've watched Invincible. I've watched a bunch of shows.
Did you watch Invincible? Did you like it?
Yeah, it was good.
Oh, so good.
But that's I mean, there's so many things that we've done that we've just not spoken about. That we normally do in that kind of format. We've been busy and life's been getting away from us. I need to hassle Alan to see how he's getting on with the evade tokens. So that should all start happening. I do have some giveaways. Obviously, a bunch of the free stuff that I managed to acquire isn't just for me to enjoy. I do plan on spreading the wealth somewhat. I got a shiny collector's edition of one of the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay books, which is like a $100 book kind of thing. So I'm trying to decide whether I need to trade that in to get some starter boxes, because I could probably do an Age of Sigmar, Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, and 40k starter box for the same value of this one book.
Yep.
So I've not decided if I'm going to do it that way or not yet, but I need to see if I can return it to a store first anyway. But I've got some giveaways that I'm going to do there, and that will all be Patreon focused as well. And yeah, it's been great. I've had a really good week at Gamma. I'm not going to lie, the trip out there, I was like, am I just going to freeze up, treat it as a holiday, hide in my room, go to a pool, and like just not engage with people? But there was that little fear factor of like, if I don't try, I can't fail. It's okay. But no, I'm glad I actually spoke to people, and I'm pretty motivated to try and like get stuff done. So hopefully, touch wood, we'll push on and go from there. If you do want to be involved, I recommend you jump onto a Discord. We had some vibrant conversation today about X-Wing. It was a good conversation in there. We obviously have a bunch of different channels. If you just ask for music selection channels, you apparently just get it made. It's fine.
Yeah, about that.
Yeah. But the Discord, Dissect Discord, is always linked in the description, so you can join there. If you want to message us, you can email us at lackoffocuspodcast@gmail.com. Hit us up on Facebook. You can message on the Discord. There's a bunch of ways, but like Discord's the main one. Like I said, my notifications are on unless I'm asleep. I can't promise I'll respond right away, but I definitely read everything as soon as I can, and then I'll try and make sure I have the time to give you a considered response. So, yeah, and that's it. I think that's probably everything. We're doing good, but yeah, thanks to all the patrons. Love you all, and really appreciate it.
One minor point of order, as this is episode 99, that does mean in 2 weeks we are hitting the century mark. I don't know what special we have planned. I don't know that we have anything special planned. It just might be a run-of-the-mill show for all I know. But I do want to point out that at 99 episodes, plus how many did
Enough.
under the old show? Wasn't like it's 73 or something, like somewhere? I feel like it was episode 70 maybe. I don't remember where we ended.
Nova Squadron Radio. Let's have a look. Podbean. How many episodes?
Drum roll, please.
So the last episode was episode 68.
That's what it was.
So it'd be 69. Nice, because you have an episode 0. Nice.
Yeah. You like that?
Yeah. So we finished after 69 episodes. There you go.
So, well, we've blown past that, obviously, but I've been podcasting with these guys for 100 and almost 70 episodes, not to mention all the other extra stuff we've done on the side.
So, I mean, there's how many? This is easy to check. I mean, I don't even know why I'm trying to type it in. I could just look. Because we have a bunch of unnumbered episodes as well, remember?
Correct. I was trying to include that.
Yeah, so if we do unnumbered episodes of Lack of Focus, including D&D content, we are at... where are you? Of course, it's not going to be there. Oh, no. There we go.
Chris is going to edit all this out anyway.
No, I'm not. I'm going to leave it in.
You'll leave it in.
Leave this shit in. Man. I knew the answer. It's like 130 episodes, I think. Around
Yeah, so we're actually coming up on almost 200.
122 episodes. There we go. For some reason, it hadn't jumped there, but yeah, 122 episodes of lack of focus.
Content.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So yeah,
it's been a good
I
run.
guess I don't know if we have anything planned. I don't know if we should probably have those conversations in the next week or so if we are going to do anything special, so that we're prepared for that.
I have a couple of ideas, nothing nailed down because I wanted to see what everyone's thoughts were, but we can work with something.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah.
All right, so Sean, always good to hang out with you, my friend.
Always good to be here.
Chris, always a pleasure.
It's always fun, Ed. Always.
So that is going to do it for episode 99. And as always, guys, until next time, fly casual. Thank you once again for joining the Lack of Focus X-Wing podcast. Check out Dice Hate Productions for all the latest episodes, and we'll be looking forward to seeing you again next episode.